Welcome to the re-entry room. I'm Alexa Starks, and today we're going to be talking all about the story, the common narrative that we've heard so many times, and we've probably said to ourselves that I don't want to quit my job. I just don't want to do it like this anymore. And I remember sitting at my desk and staring at the same Slack threads for like 10 minutes. And not because it was complicated, but because I was just so depleted and I couldn't make myself care. God, that sounds terrible, but I couldn't make myself care about work. I had my baby next to me. Why would I possibly care more about work? And that kind of scared me because I do care. I loved what I did. I mean, I do my own job now, but I loved my job before and I loved what I did. I loved my team. I loved the impact. But I was so buried in trying to feed my baby and breastfeed when I came back from maternity leave and time. Okay, he needs to eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. And then managing nap schedules and now projects and daycare. Like we weren't even thinking about daycares yet. I worked remotely, but managing his naps and when he was awake and awake windows and making sure we did something educational and meetings and just the mental gymnastics of trying to pretend that you're okay. And I started questioning if I could do it anymore. And that's when the realization hit me that I didn't want to quit. I just didn't want to do it like that. Didn't want to do it like that anymore. And that version of working motherhood, that version of professional performance where you're pretending everything's okay all the time, it's unsustainable. Truly unsustainable. So that sentence, I don't want to quit. I just don't want to do it like this anymore, has come up in nearly every conversation I've had with working moms lately. And it's whispered on the sidelines of leadership meetings. It's texted to other working moms. It's texted back and forth to your fellow mom groups during daycare time or naps or just, late night mom chats. We don't want to quit our careers. We're ambitious, we're driven, but we want to quit this broken system, the one that rewards responsiveness at all times. You have to respond within 10 seconds if someone messages you over results, the one that praises you for pushing through and powering through instead of just checking in and seeing how you're actually doing and having a safe space to actually say, hey, I'm struggling. My baby was up all night and I was up all night. And the work that where you treat flexibility as a favor instead of just a normal feature of work. So the reality is, so many of us are operating with excellence in environments designed to ignore what it actually costs us. This isn't a personal failure. This is a design failure that's so common in so many workplaces. When jobs are built without scaffolding for reentry, for caregiving, for being a full human being, of course we burn out. So, of course, we fantasize about quitting. And of course, we wonder, am I the only one who feels this way? Because we rarely talk about this. We rarely uh, identify that it's a systemic failure, that it's the corporate workplace that's failing us and doesn't have proper training in place. And so you're not the only one who feels this way. I felt that way both times with both my maternity leave returns. So you're not the only one who feels this way. And you're exhausted by a structure that wasn't built for you and was instead built for the one that rewards visibility and detriments to invisibility and prioritizes and doesn't prioritize reintegration. So let's break down three things that every reentry system actually needs. One, a real 30, 60, 90-day reentry plan. This needs to be just like you're onboarding into a brand new job, right? You have a 30, 60, 90-day plan. Here's what we expect in the first 30 days. You're not expected to be running at 100% when you just start a new job. And so that's what it needs to be with returning from maternity leave. You just had a whole new baby. You are a whole new person. You need a 30, 60, 90-day plan that you co create, that you customize with your manager with concrete expectations and structure. It's not just, hey, ease back in. It's an actual plan that acknowledges your shifting new motherhood identity, your capacity, your workload, and priorities. The second, you need scheduled emotional check ins, not performance reviews, not weekly status updates, not weekly, what are you working on? What's your task load? No, like actual, just 15-minute emotional check ins with your manager. Hey, how are you doing? How are you actually feeling? How's baby? How are you like handling all of these things? Actual conversations about how you're adjusting, what's working and what's not working, right? What support could you use from your manager? And equally, from a manager perspective, what support can you actually give? And then thirdly, boundaries that are named and respected, right? If you say you're offline for daycare pickup, you're offline. And this goes both ways. As I was the first to set boundaries on my calendar and probably the first to not even respect my own boundaries because I felt like I needed to be available at all times. I felt like I needed to respond immediately, instantly if my boss messaged me, right? I felt guilty for having a feeding Evie break on my calendar, even though I was literally busy breastfeeding. And if it's wild, like, the guilt, right? But so you need to respect your own boundaries. If you say that you can't lead that late meeting, it's not a negotiation, right? Reschedule it for tomorrow when you are available, or have someone on your team lead it if it can't be moved. But make sure that your boundaries are respected by you and others. 'Cause I remember so many times when I cried after meetings or in between different meetings, and not because of, like, what anyone said, but because I hadn't slept, and I had to pretend that none of that mattered. I had to pretend that, my baby didn't have teeth growing in and was biting my nipples when I tried to breastfeed, and I was crying trying to feed him. And when we did sleep training and that it was brutal, in the night, letting my daughter cry for a few minutes before getting her, like, I had to pretend that none of that happened, that none of that mattered, that my daughter didn't have reflux until 6 months where she was projectile vomiting on me 7 times a day during the workday too. I just had to smile. I had to get through the day and shut my laptop, stare at the wall, and go cry some more. And so it wasn't the work that really broke me. I loved my job. I loved my team. I wanted a career. But it was pretending. It was pretending and compartmentalizing the 2, that I wasn't actually also a mom while also doing my work. I had to pretend that that didn't exist. So, no, we're not quitting, we're not opting out. We're just done playing by rules as working moms that weren't meant for us. We want systems that recognize real capacity, real structure. We want cultures that model trust. And we want reentry plans that feel like return, not recovery, that feel like reintegration and support from managers who are capable of having emotionally intelligent, supportive conversations that are sometimes difficult. That when you ask someone, "Hey, how are you really doing?" and their response is not good, that your manager knows how to lead that conversation. How to say, "Hey, I understand. That's okay that it's hard right now. Let's talk about how we can ease things up at work right now so that we can take some pressure off of you." Right? Imagine if your boss said that. Mind blown. Right? So if your company hasn't built that yet, let's change that. If this episode made you rethink how we support working parents, share it with someone in your corner or someone in charge. And if your company is ready to lead the change, learn more about the Reentry Blueprint workshop at executivemoms.co. Because thriving after leave should not be the exception, it should be the system.